Hello again, everybody. Today, I am specifically making a response to Ashley Mardell's video about marriage and whether or not it can have intrinsic principles or not. I want to preface this with the idea that my purpose in this is not to change anybody's ideas or to influence anyone in any way. I am simply attempting to explain a subject that Ashley herself admitted she doesn't understand. So Ashley, I hope this explanation will at least give you some insight into how the thought process works for this other side of the argument that you're on. One thing I'm not going to be doing, I'm not going to be putting my own personal spin on it. I'm not going to give my personal opinion about what I believe is right or wrong or marriage equality. If you guys want to hear my views on marriage equality, in the comments below, let me know. I will record another video and I will talk about my specific views. I found there are a lot of people that disagree with my specific viewpoint, and which is true about any viewpoint. So unless you guys actually want to hear it, I'm not going to waste your time with something that may create a large stirring. So the idea that Ashley Mardell was talking about was the idea that there was this debate between Dan Savage and Brian Brown. Brian Brown is president of the National Organization for Marriage. Dan Savage is a writer of the Savage Love column, big LGBT activist type thing. And so they were debating about the idea of legalizing same-sex marriage. And the thing that Ashley mentioned was there was a point where Brian specifically said that if you allow same-sex marriage, it changes the intrinsic value of marriage. And Ashley was confused by the idea that, well, how can there be an intrinsic value in something that is socially constructed? Her argument was basically the idea that marriage is a social construct. It is something artificial that we as a society have created and therefore cannot have an intrinsic value. Intrinsic being something belonging naturally or essential. So how can something that is, artificial have a natural aspect to it? It doesn't make sense. And from that aspect, it is very confusing. I hope that my explanation will at least provide some insight into the other side. I think the idea that that I think Brian would go with is the idea of marriage is what's called a cultural universal. For those of you that have never heard this term before, a cultural universal is basically, Donald Brown defines it as those features of a culture, society, language, behavior, and psyche for which there are no known exception. Basically, it's something that everybody does. All around the world, it doesn't matter if the culture is completely isolated from the world, it will always come up with some of the same things. And some of those things are ideas like your name. The idea that whether or not a culture learned it from someone else, they will automatically come up with a way to differentiate themselves from other people. Music is the universal language. Music is found in cultures all across the world. When I was in high school, I did a study about music of the world, specifically in relation to their cultural aspects. You can tell a lot about what a culture values based on what their music is. I'm not even talking about lyrics and things like that. I'm talking about the actual construction of the music. It's a fascinating subject. Not going to get into it right now. Even something as simple as like swear words or taboo words that you're not supposed to say. You have these things all across the world. Everybody has them. And one of the things that everybody has is marriage. Every culture in the world has some aspect of marriage. And I think that's where the idea of marriage having intrinsic properties comes from. It's a naturally occurring social construct. Every culture in the world will eventually get to the point where they have some sort of marriage system. It's just, it's how our brains work, and it's how things work. And that's how, in his mind, in Brian's mind, he can justify that, well, there's intrinsic values to marriage, and if you change them, you're changing what marriage is. Again, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with that statement. This is just to kind of explain it. So yeah, that idea, I think, is where he comes up with the fact that, or his opinion that, legalizing same-sex marriage is changing the intrinsic value. Because while, yes, it is a social construct, it is a social construct that is a universal, cultural universal. Everybody in the world has marriage. They may call it something different, but everybody has something that basically turns into what we call marriage in general. There are a couple things that while I was doing my research, I found some really unique aspects of marriage. Everything from polygamy to what's called a walking marriage, which is really kind of a trip. But they all basically fit into the idea of marriage. So Ashley, that is what I think he was referencing. Again, everybody, I'm not going to say whether I agree or disagree with these specific things because that, I believe, is a subject for another vlog. If you guys want to see that vlog, let me know in the comments below. It will be a fairly long vlog. It's a very complicated subject, but I am happy to talk about it. This vlog has a different purpose. Again, I will put links to Ashley's video and the video that she was commenting on in the doobly-doo below. Please check them out. She actually does an incredibly good job of bringing up a topic that could be very controversial in a way that supports debate and discussion, as opposed to a way that just kind of bashes one side or another and just creates arguments and just general fighting. So props to you, Ashley. You're fantastic at bringing up these subjects that are very difficult to talk about in very supportive ways. I hope that this makes sense to you, and I hope that at least helps you to understand the other side of the argument. So that's all for me today, and I will see you guys the next time. Bye-bye.